Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Beth Ann. Today I am doing the Q tag, which is part of Jim's alphabet tag series. So I'll post a link to his original tag video below. That's at Jim's Books, Reading, and Stuff. I was tagged by John over at Hey Y'all Listen Up, which made me really happy because I've been meaning to revisit these alphabet tags for a long time and haven't gotten back to doing any of them. So I'm glad that I'm now finally doing one after the A and B tags that I did when Jim first started this. So here we go. Okay, the prompts and timestamps will be down below as usual. So Q is for quick. What was a quick read for you? A book you read in 1 or 2 sittings? Recently, I think some of the Rebecca Weatherspoon romances I talked about in my October-November wrap-ups, maybe one of those was 1 or 2 sittings, and the cozy mystery I read and talked about in my November wrap-up was a 1 or 2, definitely like a 2 sitting read for me. But yeah, definitely short genre fiction can be a quick read. But at this point in my life, it's very hard to be able to sit down and read books in 1 or 2 sittings. Q is for question. So I'll say what Jim said. You can ask me a question in the comments below. I try to answer every comment. But then he also asks, what is your favorite question word? So the who, what, where, how, why. I really like the ones that just establish what happened, the who, what, and where. But in terms of what I'm most interested in, I definitely like why, but I think how I'm maybe most interested in. And John talked about really liking how as an engineer. I am not an engineer. I grew up with an engineer, my dad, and really loved learning how everything worked. And my brain can't hold on to it, so I don't remember any of it. Like, he taught me an awful lot about how cars work, but I still call him every time I have even the most minor thing go wrong. So I don't remember it, but I really like learning how things work, even if I won't remember. Q is for quantity and quality. Would you rather read 10 okay books in a month or 1 very good book? So in general, 1 very good book I would always prefer, just like the deep satisfaction that I get from that. But there's also, sometimes there's the headspace where you're just like really busy and really tired, and sometimes really good books just like take so much out of you. And so in that context, I would be really happy with a lot of okay books because they can scratch the reading itch. And of course, there's different types of being an okay book, but like some okay books, it's like, okay, yeah, there are flaws and problems, but I enjoyed it so much. So yeah, it sort of depends on how I'm feeling, I guess. Q is for queer. Do you have a favorite queer author? So I'm going to talk about Rebecca Weatherspoon again because I've been reading her books. So just going off of my recent reads over the past few months, I've been really loving Rebecca Weatherspoon and Alexandria Belle Fleur, who I think is also queer. So they are both contemporary romance authors. So that's the mood I've been in. But yeah, so I really like them right now. All right, Q is for quiet. Do you need quiet to read? Jim's response to this prompt was hilarious because it was just him trying to read with all the background noise of his family around, and that really spoke to my soul because often when I'm reading, it's just a few stolen moments while my kid and my partner are being loud and noisy somewhere else, or it's stolen moments like out and about while I'm running errands and waiting for various things, which it can often be noisy. So I do not mind noisy. If I'm reading hefty nonfiction, though, it either needs to be quiet or it needs to be very white noise, like cafe background noise, something like that. Q is for Quran. Have you read the Quran? No, but I would like to. Probably not in its entirety, but I would like to read bits and pieces, just like I've read some bits and pieces of the Bible, which I would like to read more of, just because it's pretty foundational to part of our culture over here, which I'm not super a fan of. One thing I have been reading lately is the Mahabharata, the Indian mythic stories, the Hindu mythic stories, which has been really, really enjoyable. I still have like over 1,000 pages to go, but that's really fun. Q is for Quack. Why does Pei have so many ducks in his videos? I have no idea. I assume he's answered it, so actually I will probably go try to track that down today because I love the ducks in Pei's video. Q is for Queensland, Qatar, Quito, and Quebec. Have you read a book from any of these places? or anywhere beginning with Q. And I can't think that I have. I think I've read books where, like, occasionally, I'm thinking about, like, Neil Stevenson. Does he have a character who, like, goes through Queensland at some point? But yeah, I don't think I've read books from those particular places, and I can't think of anywhere else with a Q. This might be a hole in my reading. Q is for Quaker. Has there been a Quaker protagonist or character in any of your reading? I'm Quaker, so if the reader counts. But yeah, I was really struggling to come up with something for this. Although Jane Addams, I've been reading 20 Years at Hull House, and by I've been reading, I mean I read part of it in March, and then part of it made me sad, and so I put it down, and I would like to get to it before the end of the year to finish it because it's really excellent. But I believe, I can't remember if she really strongly identified as Quaker, but she certainly was raised Quaker. Someone can correct me down below maybe, or I'll refresh myself when I dive back into her. Q is for quote. Can you share some quotes about reading? So there are a million. In high school and college, I used to collect quotes and actually like keep them in a notebook and stuff for inspiration, and I no longer have that, so I know I had good ones in there. But some that I do like that I've encountered recently are, in the case of good books, the point is not to see how many of them you can get through, but rather how many can get through to you, Mortimer Adler. And then reading one book is like eating one potato chip by Diane Duane, which I really strongly identify with. Q is for Quill. Have you had any writings published? So not in the Booktube sense of books and short stories and poems, but I have had several scientific papers published, which is what I do for my profession, but also requires quite a bit of creative thinking and nose to the grindstone for long periods of time in ways that seem consistent with what I hear from real writers on Booktube. So I'm sort of like, I'm halfway in that camp of like, I spend a lot of my time doing that. Okay, Q is for quiz question. Quilp featured in which Dickens novel? I don't know. I haven't read that much Dickens. Something I'd like to correct. All right, and then Jim has some bonus prompts that I'm going to do quickly. So Q is for queen. Do you have a favorite book about a queen or even about the queen? Do not have a favorite book about the queen. And the only thing I could come up with of a favorite book about like a queen is a guilty pleasure read, which is the Black Jewels trilogy by Anne Bishop. This is fantastic if you're an angsty teenager. I loved it when I was an angsty teenager, and now that I'm a reformed angsty teenager, I still love to pick it up and reread it every 3 years or so. This is 3 fantasy books in one, so it's quite hefty. The font is quite small. There's some things that are kind of problematic about it, but I just really love it. Q is for Quetzal. Have you ever seen a Quetzal? Yes, I have, and I'm totally blanking on where. I have done a fair amount of birding throughout the range of multiple Quetzal species, and so like I can picture it, but I would have to ask my partner about like where that was because he's the birder and I sort of go along for the ride. But yes, and it was amazing, and I don't even remember which species it was, but it was gorgeous and beautiful, and like, you know, that feeling of awe that you get sometimes. Definitely had that feeling of awe for that experience. Q is for quadruped, a chance to show your 4-legged pet. I do not have a 4-legged pet at the moment, which is very sad. And Q is for quarrel. Have you ever argued about a book? Mostly just sort of like pretend arguing, you know, just like sort of having fun with friends, especially about things like Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. Yeah, I can't really think of a time that I've actually been like invested in an argument or like sort of emotionally invested in an argument about books, partly because the books that I think that might happen with would be like with my mom or and around a book that was like really centered on race or something, and it would be like very emotional getting into like the like on the surface level of things. We have a lot of like agreement on very serious issues like that, but then once we sort of dig into the nitty gritty of sort of the mechanics of today's world and white supremacy and what white people should be doing about it, things can break down very quickly. And so that's sort of a tough conversation that I would like to figure out how to navigate better, and haven't yet. And I don't think we've ever had it yet about a book. But I think it's like that's probably gonna happen. So that's why it like that came up in my sort of in the front of my head looking at this question. So okay, so that is the tag. Oh, I was going to ask at the beginning, I actually have a question for anybody who watches this, and probably very few people will make it all the way to the end, but I'm going to ask it here anyway. I am going to buy a webcam of the, just the small kind that like can hook into your laptop. But I did finally get a new computer, so you might have noticed the video quality is like slightly better, but it's still, I didn't prioritize that when I bought my new laptop. So I was just sort of hoping that whatever like base improvement there had been in the 5 years since I had bought my last laptop would have fixed things, but it didn't help very much. Anyway, I'm going to buy a webcam. So if you are someone who uses one of those webcams that just plugs into your laptop and really like what you have or really don't like what you have any recommendations, I would appreciate that. All right, thank you, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.